Welcome to the Tesseract Podcast, where we unlock your power to innovate. Our mission is to empower airmen, connect them to resources, and accelerate change across the Air Force logistics enterprise. Specifically, our team works as an innovation accelerator assigned to the Air Staff Logistics Directorate, where we partner with airmen to foster a culture of innovation and maximize warfighter impact. My name is Dan, and I'll be your host for today. Today we're joined by Major General Jeff King, the Director of Logistics, Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection at Headquarters U.S. Air Force. With over 32 years of service as an aircraft maintenance officer, Major General King has led every level from the flight line to the pentagon, shaping logistics strategy and sustainment efforts across the force, keeping our aircraft in the sky. As he approaches retirement, we're excited to hear his reflections on a remarkable career dedicated to mission readiness, innovation, and the airmen who make it all possible. Major General King.
So, It is great to spend time with the Team Tesseract and kind of get some thoughts out to our larger audience.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited to hear it all. We'll kick it off with you, sir. A career in aircraft maintenance takes you all over the globe, right? There are aircraft everywhere, and all of those aircraft need to be maintained. Just to start off, could you share a little bit about yourself and then, what drove you to pursue aircraft maintenance and from the start?
Yeah, sure. Actually, when I was in about the 6th grade, I saw an F-15, and that's it. I want to be a fighter pilot. And during my pre-commissioned physical, they found something that was disqualifying. And, I'll tell you, when that door was closed, I've been blessed a million times over. I selected aircraft maintenance as my career field because if I couldn't fly, I wanted to be as close to the mission as possible. And I got my first choice as career fields, and I put for my bases all F-15 bases, and I got my first choice of bases, which is Langley. Had an incredible experience there. And, frankly, wasn't sure if I was going to do more than one assignment or not, right? Because I didn't get to do what I came in to do. And I just fell in love with the mission, with the people that I was doing it with. The dopamine, the adrenaline hit of just working really hard to make something happen and achieve that sense of success. And Uncle Sam and the good Lord just kept opening doors, and I just walked through them for the last 32 years. And it's been great, really powered and enabled by teams, mentored up and across and down, no more so than by our chiefs. I'm so thankful for our chiefs and the enlisted force they represent. They have been, they've given me the toughest of wire brushes, the most constructive criticism. And I'm thankful for all the time that our chiefs have invested in me and continue to over the years. So it's been a great run. I've enjoyed it. It's gone by quick.
I can imagine, sir. I'm just about to hit my 10-year mark, and I feel like it's flown by, right?
Yeah. And now you're hooked, right? We got you halfway to that retirement.
Exactly. So. Yeah. And you just gave me a roof towel for my stripes, so I got to now I got to make the most of it.
That's right. Congratulations. Yeah. No, it's what the Air Force is giving me a lot of opportunity, right? Just a young guy. A divorced mom, raising 2 kids, working 2 jobs, first guy in my family to go to college. My brother was the next. The Air Force gave me opportunity that I don't know that I would have gotten anywhere else. And a set of experiences, they're just indescribable. And I'm just so very thankful and grateful to the Air Force and everyone that I've worked with. It's been awesome. And I have a hard time. I get choked up here thinking about, being my last day on duty coming up in a month from now. But it's been a good run.
I think that's what makes it all great, right? Is the people we spend it with. All the years and the missions, they're all great. And all the experiences of watching the stories take off after a long night of maintenance. There's nothing like that, right? But it's the folks that are surrounding you while you're
or building up bombs or moving material or getting fuel where it needs to be, or port dogs killing. It doesn't matter. If you're a 2-1X or a 2A, you are, or a 2 anything, right? On the enlisted side, we all share the same purpose, the same mission. We're all in it together. It's not, aircraft maintenance is, we're support officers. We support the pilots, and, everyone else, we all support each other in the main mission. So a big team, but the 2X is the law used officer and enlisted. We're a unique core in the Air Force, and I love to celebrate us.
Absolutely, sir. And so focusing a little more on your current role, in your role as Director of Logistics, Deputy Chief of Staff of Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection, innovation within logistics and maintenance is critical. Could you share your strategic vision for fostering innovation within logistics and maintenance And then how do you identify and integrate cutting-edge technologies to enhance operational efficiency and readiness?
Yeah, that's a great couple of questions. And I'll tell you, right up front, people who spent time with me over the years, I know that I can say some pretty provocative things because I want to start a dialogue, right? I'm 0% sure I know 100% of anything. And so I'll probably say a couple of things in here that are fairly provocative and may rub some feathers wrong or something along the way. And I would ask folks to engage with me, via email while I'm still active through September, or via LinkedIn. We learn from productive dialogues, right? And listening and learning from each other. We all have something to bring to the fight. In this case, I will say that, and this is provocative, but not terribly, because I think everyone would agree that, let's start with the fact that, acknowledging the fact that sustainment and warfighting logistics, our innovation ecosystems are fragmented and underfunded, right? We do innovation in a lot of places. It's not synchronized or coordinated. And even when we come up with great ideas and get them ready to transition, we have to fight like a honey badger for funding. And so a lot of things sit on the shelf or they're delayed. That assertion of our innovation ecosystem being fragmented and underfunded applies to aircraft design and modification, equipment refresh, and even our logistics IT. I think Walmart and Amazon spent $5 billion on their IT in 2024. And for log IT, it was like, 400 million, right? They realize getting a thing to a place to a point in time is crucial, and IT is the essence of that. And the Air Force just hasn't quite gotten there on that investment. The fragmentation I'm talking about, I think it stems from just a sincere desire by half the MAGCOMs, our program offices and field units and innovation cells like Tesseract, in the Rapid Sustainment Office and others. They really just want to quickly solve operational gaps. But we're not all in the same boat, and we're certainly not rowing together, right? That each one is out trying to solve a problem as quick as they can within the authority and with the funding they have. But it may not be an enterprise solution, and it may be solving their problem, but not the bigger problem. So everyone's trying to do the right thing. We're just not synchronized. And then I'd say let's assert that the goal of sustainment and warfighting logistics is to get a thing to a specific place at a precise point in time. In that sense, I believe logistics really underpins every pallet moved, every bomb put on target, every fighter that arrives on time for its designated combat air patrol, and really every piece of data that's transmitted. I think the chronic underfunding of innovation and sustainment and warfighting logistics stems from the admittedly provocative assertion that the Air Force has not yet fully embraced the fact that, like Walmart and Amazon, our operations are rooted in logistics. In fact, I contend to believe that the operational level of warfare is logistics. Tactical is equipment, strategic is instruments of power. The operational level of warfare is logistics, period. But unfortunately, sustainment and logistics are often seen as foundational activities in our kind of budget planning things. So they're not seen as operational capabilities. And so if you consider like the Berlin airlift, remember the Berlin airlift, World War II, we all studied the candy bomber, and that was the sustainment of people through delivery of cargo, aka logistics, right? Logistics was the supported activity. The airlift, in terms of ends, ways, means, right, was just the means or the ways, right? It was the way. The ends was logistics. We were supporting logistics, was supported in that way. And I can't think of too many times where we've recognized that logistics is the supported activity in warfare. So something to think in mind. According to joint doctrine, sustainment is a joint concept. It is one of the 7 joint warfighting capabilities. Sustainment is one. And the joint community recognizes that we as an Air Force need to do a better job of recognizing that. So I know I'm going on a little bit, but I think context is important. And maybe it'll spur some thought and people engage back with me on some things I hadn't thought of. So really, to answer your question directly, I think we first need to determine our operational concept. What is it we need to do, and how is it we want to go about doing it? And then we need to determine our scheme and maneuver. right? So determine operational concept. What do we need to do? How are we going to do that? And then how are we going to maneuver our forces to support that operational concept? And then we need to determine our capability gaps. We need to do X, we can only do Y. And then when we look at those gaps, we develop solutions for closing those gaps and prioritize them for effect. We fund the innovations that close those gaps that'll give us the biggest operational bang for our buck. We've got to have a mindset instead of, everybody kind of running out and solving, a multitude of activities. Let's bring them all together, rack and stack them, see how many we can do, how many number ones we can have, right? How many we can do in parallel and what has to be done in sequence, and start working from the top down in terms of enhancing warfighting capability and go from there. And the Air Force should consider those things in whole at the air staff and our budget processes, instead of saying, hey, AMC, go solve this problem of not having material loaders, go develop a crane for your KC-135s, you XYZ, go, ACC, figure out how to generate your fighters faster. Well, hold on a minute. We have the whole of Air Force. We've got amazing folks in the research arms. We've got amazing operational test and evaluation community. We've got incredible knowledge in the warfighters that are actually doing this work. Us. Let's bring everybody together. Come up with a plan, right? Present that plan, get it funded, and actually go do something. That's probably sounds Pollyannic, but I believe that's the way to go, and I think it can be done. The Army has an Office of Contested Logistics, and I can tell you, those cats are light years ahead of us in determining operational gaps, working with industry and academia to come up with solutions. They're getting a good amount of research development, RDT&E funding, and they're actually fielding things to scale. Perhaps this time we have our own Office of Contested Logistics, right? Tesseract on steroids, if you will, that gets after, Tesseract handles the human born ideas, but, how about we get our SAS grads and our AMOS grads and our ALROC grads, and we get them together and really get to thinking hard about how to solve our problems, and then have an organization pent to go accelerate those things fast. I think we're overdue, and that's the recommendation making to the A4 and to the chief, that as we look at reorganizing the Air Force for Great Power Competition, we created the ICC and IDO and some others to help go faster. This is a necessary thing we need to do. So in the meantime, we're looking at the arts of sustainment and warfighting logistics through innovation in those areas through several lines of effort. In A4L, our tech director, Miss Maggie Sleeper, conducts industry days once a quarter, where folks who reach out to us either via LinkedIn or contractors reaching out directly, we will huddle with them and get their pitches. It's kind of like Shark Tank. And we bring in the RSO, we bring in others, and, so that we're getting a holistic look. We bring in the Sustainment Center, we'll bring in program offices as need be, and we really kind of see, is this something that will close a gap? If so, who's the best one to take that idea and run with it? We've got some folks doing contested logistics campaigning, and as they identify operational gaps, they have the ability to call people into Industry Day to help us close those gaps. We now have LogTac, Logistics Tactics Fuel. It's our version of the operational community's WebTac and IMSC's iWebTac for installations. Of course, we have Tesseract, amazing, right? The Ether Sprint, right, that brings ideas up, and then, we end up from 50 down to 3 or 4 that are now mostly baked, and then we can go out and refine them and then try to find funding to field them to scale. Awesome. Lifecycle Management Center, has the Rapid Sustainment Office, and they are working so hard to close operational logistics gaps. Again, their challenge is finding funding to field to scale. And then we got other forums like the Vice Chiefs Challenge that bring ideas from all over the field. In 2019, here's something most people don't know. In 2019, the air logistics complexes, the ALCs or depots, were designated as national labs. And so what? So now they can enter into partnership agreements with university research centers like Georgia Tech's Research Institute, University of Dayton Research Institute, Wichita State's National Institute of Aviation Research, who's doing a digital twin of a B-1 and an F-16 disassembly part by part, scanning it in so that we have tech data packages to make parts that we no longer have tech data for. And they're doing it for a couple engines too. The depots can partner with them, get money through the budget or through Congress directly to go advance things like 3D metal printing, in situ monitoring to validate the integrity of 3D printing, advanced cold spray, and other things. So that's another avenue for modernizing sustainment. And then we've got emerging organizations like the Program Executive Office for Combat Readiness and the Product Support Center of Excellence, where the product support managers and all the program officers will come together to share good ideas. So if we're going to go to LED light bulbs on the F-15E to get past that crappy Kapton wiring, not as much electrical draw and reduce strain on generators. And by the way, they don't burn out as fast, so we're not changing as many lights, and we don't have to drag C10s out and, dash 60s on mids to do power on checks. It saves time, saves money, right? It saves effort. If you do scoop for one, why aren't we putting LED bulbs on every airplane, right? Those organizations, PEO, Combat Readiness, and the Enterprise Product Support Division will be able to take good ideas horizontally across the board. A lot of good stuff coming. Again, it feels fragmented. It is, but we're working hard to get all those folks in the same boat to row in together and then fund the most important things. So bottom line is there's no shortage of great ideas. There's not. From the field, industry occasionally, they're out trying to solve our problems for us. The critical impact is not having enough RDT&E funding to develop those ideas. And then the funding needed to field them to scale. That's the piece that we're really having a hard time getting the Air Force to pony up to, but we're working on it. So bottom line, I'd say it's completely unsatisfactory that we don't have modern aviation support equipment and other things. The Dash 60s that we're using today are essentially the same one maintainers were pushing around flight line in Vietnam, right? That's criminal. It's just criminal, and maybe we don't need a Dash 60 at a spoke, in the Pacific. Maybe we need a Dash 20, something that does a minimum amount of power to just generate, and the Dash 60s are in the rear at the hub for the heavy maintenance, right? We need to reimagine, and we got to have common support equipment, truly common support equipment. So, and it's on the aircraft side too. If a fighter perfectly designed to outmatch an adversary in the air is useless if we can't get it off the ground before it's struck with a TBM, right? And if we made design concessions, for aircraft performance in the air, but it takes longer to generate, we got to figure out how to fix that. And I'll just give you one example, and then we'll move on. We move on to the next question. Clearly, I'm passionate about this stuff, right? There's what I do, and there's what I love to do, and accelerating innovation is my personal happy place. So if you go out and Google, just go to Google or go to YouTube and type pit stop comparison, you'll get a comparison of a pit stop in 1950 and a pit stop in Formula One in 2013 in Melbourne, Australia, I think. And it's neat. The whole video itself lasts probably 3 minutes. In 1950, you'll see that they were limited to like 4 crew chiefs at the time. One's hammering on a tire knockoff like it owes him money. The other's cleaning a windshield like he's down on a quarter trying to make a buck. And that's the only main work being done. That pit stop took 67 seconds. And as the story goes, that the split for that race was 38, right? In 2013, when you're watching the ramp up to that Formula One car come in, you'll see 21 people huddled around that spot. And they pit the car in less than 3 seconds, right? They did that by modifying the car to take fuel faster. They implemented captured lug nuts to be able to swap parts quicker instead of hammering on a single knockoff at the hub. They put tearaway lenses on the helmet visors to avoid even having to clean windshields. They subordinated manpower requirements to operational success, and they developed unique training devices and jacks, and then they train, right? So my point is, in a sport with a margin of victory, a flag and a trophy is often measured in, tenths of a second. In combat, lives and strategic goals are at stake. Lives, human lives, American lives. I firmly believe it's high time we do the same, invest what's needed to accelerate sortie generation, material and munitions handling, in the maintenance, repair, and overall activities that fuel the fight. Our Air Force, our Department of Defense, owes that to our airmen to give us what we need to fight the mission and make sure we come home and get ready to go do the next one.
Couldn't agree more, sir. I mean, that was a very long, and I could tell how passionate you are about this this question. What you had to say there. Something I wanted to kind of drive home is when you talked about identifying the capability gaps, and then going back to your last example there with the pit stop comparison. If most of the time I believe, and in my past experiences, we try to test our capabilities in exercises, right? That's typically point of an exercise other than, deterrence and things like that. I believe the perspective a lot of times in exercises is that the after action report of an exercise should say, we did everything very well and we're right exactly how we're supposed to do it, right? Something to that effect. We executed the mission the way we are tasked to execute the mission. Not we executed the mission as best as we could, but we fell short in these 10 places and we need to get after that, right? Something that I've experienced in the field, and I would ask your opinion on if you've ever experienced that in the field. Not so much I would never say that airmen are not including things in the report. I think it's just a misunderstanding of the goal of exercises in general, the Air Force, right? The whole point is to test our capabilities. And a lot of the times we're not communicating those capability gaps from the field all the way up. I think the MAGCOMs then have to go from, okay, well, if we executed our mission, now what? Now how do we get better, right? And then they have to ideate at that point, and sometimes they miss out on the war fighters' perspective in some of those after action reports.
Yep, perhaps. And so we all have our perspectives, and they're all valuable. And I'm not saying yours is wrong. But we'll say we exercise for various reasons, right? Sometimes we're exercising to make sure we can accomplish an O plan. Sometimes we exercise to test out an operational concept like ACE, right? So if we have defined O plan and we have scripted how we're going to prep, pack out, JI, move people and things, generate our aircraft and deploy, now it's an exercise to test our ability to plan and stick to the plan and do that well. And if we did that well, yes, right? That's good. If we didn't do that well, then we have an absolute duty to our nation. Leaders have a duty to our subordinates to speak truth to power and say, I could not execute my mission because I didn't have X, Y, or Z, right? What I've often found in exercises is that we subordinate certain activities, right? Like, hey, sortie generation, we got a flying hour program to meet, stop the attack early so we can fix airplanes. All right, well, now civil engineers didn't get to go do all the things they can do, project the plume and counter, subverting effects and whatnot. Other times they're like, oh, hey, I know that engine change kit is supposed to be on Chalk 23, simulate it because we don't have enough and we need to generate here. Well, now we're maybe not fully, testing the pack out, right? That kind of thing. We need to schedule our exercises to meet certain objectives and subordinate other things to them. Like, hey, gang, we are not going to fly a lot because we have to test our ATSO. We're going to attack the heck out of you, and then we're going to evaluate your response, right? Hey, working realistically through CBRN attacks and the deployment process is the goal this time. We'll fly what we have to. Other times, you're really a phase 2 portion of the whole job. Fly, do everything you can. We're going to test you, those types of things. So now, if we're testing for experimentation like ACE, and we met every measure, I would argue we weren't pushing the envelope hard enough. So, and I'll just kind of park after there for that. But I will say that, if anyone's not speaking to truth to power and reporting operational gaps well, I hope they have a hard time looking themselves in the mirror because they're not doing anybody any good in preparing us to go kick China's butt, right? They get an itch, we need to be ready to scratch it. And our exercises, some of them can be designed to highlight those gaps. I will say that, I've participated in hundreds of exercises, hundreds of IG inspections, or dozens of IG inspections anyways. And, those after action reports, I've never seen where they actually come back to the building in form of recommendations to change the budget 2 years from now, right? You go back to the MAGCOM, and the MAGCOM does what they can with what they have, using the helping hand at the end of their arm, but most of the levers to alleviate those constraints are outside of their reach. And we don't tie them in at the enterprise level to say, man, so I'm a perfect example. An airplane is NMCS for a part. For 50 years, we've been able to tell you by tail number what parts are against it, whether it's 1AJ or BQ. We know that. We do that really well. Now, if you ask somebody, hey, your NMCM rate is pretty high. Why is that? the boots become pretty interesting all of a sudden. Now we've updated our INDS and GOE1 so you can have a 6-digit status code in there, and you can say on NMCM for manpower, for a level, for test equipment, for age, for facilities, hello, corrosion control. Now, when we begin to populate that and we look at that data, we can go, wow, okay, age, where it says they're on hold for age. Now let's go over to ELMS, formerly DPAS, where we've directed everyone to put their age into and status it like vehicles and aircraft for the first time. We can go over and go, what's the problem with age? Oh man, only 50% of their Dash 60s are working 50% of the time. Okay, do we have enough to move around? We've got a few, not all. Okay, let's go do an emergency contract, right? We haven't had the ability to do that before. We do now. But until we highlight those gaps, we can't lift and shift and apply the resources we need to do. So we're getting better at it, but we absolutely had an obligation to our airmen in the service to identify shortfalls and not just have people work harder. It's ridiculous. You can't dig your way out of a hole. Never have.
Couldn't agree more, sir. Yeah, and you know as much as I do, the maintainer mentality is always just make the mission happen, right? Just always work harder.
There's a lot of the logging, not just the maintainer. You have, including MUNs in our log R folks. It's get it done, and we may have to in time of war. We may have to step away from AFI and have the senior person on site make a spot risk assessment, right? So we want to train like we fight, and while we do that, we can't wish away, fairy dust away the requirements this can take to get it done. So we have to train realistically. We have to exercise realistically. We have to hold ourselves to standards. Those exercise goals and requirements, and be honest with ourselves if we didn't meet them. And if we didn't meet them because it was poor leadership, okay, there's a fix for that. It's not usually the case. Normally, don't meet those exercise goals or those operational goals because we're not resourced well, and I just haven't seen where we do a real good job of closing the loop between pick an exercise, pick an ORI, and Air Force level budget decisions that alleviate constraint for our Air Force.
Copy that. So, sir, as we've discussed, your career has taken you to a lot of places, right? From Langley to Kadena, Turkey to Afghanistan, and ultimately here to the Pentagon for what has been multiple times over your career. Can you share with us how you've seen process improvement methodologies evolve over the course of your career? And how do you see continuous process improvement playing a role in preparing the force for a near peer or peer threat?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, my passion for innovation, it is matched with my passion for process improvement, right? Not just wringing our hands and admiring or lamenting a problem, but roar, sleeves up and try and figure out how to fix it. Why is continuous process CPI important in a near peer fight? They don't have our bureaucracy. They don't have an obligation to address, issues that affect society at large. A lot of things that consume our time and budget. The adversary trying to solely concern with doing one thing, building an arsenal is so great that they, deter a conflict against them and can overwhelmingly win anything they try and do, right? They have an asymmetric advantage. China graduates more people with a STEM major every year than the U.S. graduates with any kind of degree. And granted, it's economy of scale, but at the end of the day, you have all those engineers and scientists focus on the same problems we have, they're going to go faster, right? So why is CPI important to us? Innovating quicker, alleviating constraints, getting our readiness on status quicker, cost effectiveness where it makes sense, where we can, to be able to free budget to go reinvest in other things we want and we need. Those are all important. But doing CPI, continuous process improvement, for efficiency's sake, hasn't been helpful. We need to do it for effectiveness sake. I mean, it was helpful at the time, but there's a fine line between lean. You're familiar with lean principles. Fine line between lean and malnourished, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. It's so lean, so long that we've attributed a lot of muscle mass, and we got to get that back in a constrained budget. Freeing up some headroom to reinvest in our stuff's going to be important. So, I'm a huge fan of continuous process improvement. In fact, just leveraging big data, right? I mean, if I had a secondary FSE, I'd be out panhandling for enlisted maintenance management, as an analyst, because I love that piece. And now that we have AI and things to help do that map, and not just Excel spreadsheet and grid boards like long ago, it's good. that big data, we need to leverage that and really pull the essence out of it to understand why things are the way they are. To then develop data-driven, risk-informed investments and process changes to close those gaps or help us go faster or do better. I worked closely with maintenance manager, PSV and analysts in every assignment and tried to impress on all of them that leveraging big data, we don't have to just wring our hands hoping things will change. We can actually understand why and put things in place. I'll give you one example. When I was a Cadena as a captain, I wanted back as a group commander. I was frustrated with the ground works, and basically, EOR turnbacks, end of runway turnbacks. And so I asked the team to start tracking this before hearing about CPI and any of that. I said, I want to track any issue found at end of runway, and then I want you to highlight which ones we can fix and which ones we can't. And got a lot of grumble and pushback. We've been tracking, looked at the data, and went, look, man, missile covers, paved place on installed, bald spot on tires because folks weren't doing the rollover check. Those were all preventable. And once we, raised that awareness, those things went away. And then we only have leaks that, exacerbated on the way down or something that, a crack that was, discovered by someone who knew where to look. Yeah, something weird, right? Something truly the ground aboard, not something preventable. And our aborts went down, our turnbacks and our delays went down. And that was just by looking at the process as it was, right? And that's one of 1,000 examples in the field. So big fan. When I was a lieutenant, we had total quality manager or quality Air Force. That was the first brush at that. Major lieutenant colonel, we did ASO 21, a mean Six Sigma. And then as a colonel, a general officer, it's all been about theory of constraints. And if I can go back to Captain King, I'd tell him, become a theory of constraint guru. It can be applied anywhere. And I may hit on that in a minute. But, theory of constraints is exactly what we need to be doing across the Air Force because it IDs constraints. We're not guessing. We know where the constraint is. And then we can surface the best, CPI tool to get after those constraints. Most importantly, we can ID the lever owner. If it's parts, we want to go to LRS and hammer the room at parts. That's like hitting an elevator button, right? They're not actually moving the parts. That's a 635th or commercial carrier. They're not actually buying the parts. That's the 448 or DLA. They're not repairing the parts. That's the depot and our contractors, right? So where is the constraint? Get them to move from you talked breakfast, the chicken, the pig are both involved. The chicken contributes, the pig's all in, right? Totally committed. We want to move into the totally committed stage. And the way to do that is to show them definitively, this is yours. What are you doing to fix it? So theory of constraints operates that. For the Trekkies out there, the Kobayashi and Maru, right? The unwinnable test. And Kurt cheated. I say he's an innovator. He went left to bang and reprogrammed the unwinnable test so you could win. And we as leaders, logistics leaders, our job is to look left to bang and look at the conditions that are preventing our people from succeeding and then just go out and hammer success to those things. So I'd say continuous process improvement, an absolute must. Our pacing adversaries are constantly studying us, improving their tech and techniques. They're constantly trying to get the upper hand. CPI not only helps us maximize our mission effectiveness while keeping a watchful eye on cost effectiveness, but it can be used to help modernize our equipment and processes so that we can outpace our adversaries. And that's the position we want to be. We want nose position. Fighter pilots say nose position is everything. So the best advice I have here for officers, senior NCOs in the mix, is strive to be data rats and skilled communicators. Seek to understand why things are the way they are, and then effectively engage with those who can fix it. If you're not a numbers person, okay, fine. Surround yourself with people who are. And then give them the vision and turn them loose, and they'll surprise the hell out of you. So we just got to understand our root challenges, how to change those conditions and move on. Once thought of only applicable in our depots, I've seen theory of constraints transform flight lines, pharmacies, support equipment review process, support agreement review processes, admin. Frankly, I think learning theory of constraints ought to be a core competency for every airman. So I know over the top, but I got a passion for CPI because it's not only using the helping hand at the end of your arm to the best of your ability, but it's showing where your arm is up on ref and you need to bring somebody else in.
Not going to catch me arguing that, sir. And you know our position on CPI, process improvement and theory of constraints, right? At Tesseract, that's our bread and butter over here. And not only does does theory of constraints allow you to identify the constraint, but it brings the whole organization together in accomplishing a goal, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the goal isn't clear. Sometimes, and we find it a lot in maintenance organizations, we think the assumed goal is 100% MC rate, but we have a specific mission that we're trying to fly, and maybe that's the goal at a certain time, right? And
we often don't understand what it is we're trying to do. Technically, aircraft only need to be mission capable 5 minutes before cruise tips, right? So the MC rate isn't even the best, right? And that's why we're working to develop what we say is a true north metric or an aircraft utilization plan that gets away from percentages and actually tells us how many airplanes we need every day to support our combat commitment, to support peacetime flying operations for training, to support maintenance training, what we need to support fleet health, and work to make sure that we have all of those aircraft available by number. Not a notional figure based on what we could do, what we historically have done, but the no kidding, what do we need to do what we need to do? And with that number in hand, I think people will really see the stark delta between what we have and what we need. And the Air Force will be prompted to put money behind it to help close that gap. You can't reorganize your way out into better readiness. You can't think your way into it. Just about every lever of readiness has to do with funding and resources, and you can't wish that away.
Absolutely agree, sir. And so we've said it multiple times, right? You've had an extensive career, and one of those stops during your career was your previous stop before you came here to have A4L, and that was your time at the Oklahoma City Air Logistics Complex, right? The OKALC, the OCALC. You apologize. And so, while you were there, you emphasized the dedication, discipline, and innovative spirit of the workforce in maintaining operational readiness. Over the course of your career, and now as the Director of Logistics, how do you see us best leveraging existing manufacturing and Air Force production capabilities to drive innovation? And are there particular areas within logistics where you see significant opportunity for innovation, whether that be CPI or material innovation?
Yeah, there's a series of great questions. And I'll tell you, when I was a young officer, they say, hey, you have to, career broaden or you're not going to make major. And you can go into supply trans or log plans because they're all separate squadrons at the time. You can go to defo broadening, or there was this new program called Elite where you can career broaden into acquisitions. I like taking the road less travel, knew if I was going to be a decent maintenance officer, so better put another club in the bag. And so I went and did the acquisition side. But it gets kind of across the board and I'll just roll back a little bit. We from the DT and the executive DT have really determined that our 21X core has three main competencies: enterprise logistics, which is depth in our core and breadth across 2A R&M, right, at the enterprise level. And I'll tie back to that in a minute. The second one is joint logistics. We should have a stronger foothold in the joint community. And the third is acquisition logistics. If we're not happy with the equipment we have and the sustainment strategy, we need to have a bigger say in that. And so we need to train people to go do that. And that ACLOG is what I did when I career broadened. But getting back to the enterprise logistics piece, where everything comes together is in our ALCs. The big part of me wish I would have done the LCBP program. When I was young, they're like, great officers go to the depot to die. And I don't know, who knows, that may have been a thing at a time. That isn't the case now, right? I mean, the sharp officers we had, we made them better and all got them promoted into schools and AMOS and other things. The most important thing is, I think the ALCs are the only place in our Air Force where we get to see wholesale supply, the 448 supply chain management wing, come together with program offices and engineers, the supported MAGCOMs, the folks doing the heavy maintenance. And I mentioned before, we can lash up with universities and we can bring industry in directly. It is truly a centrifuge, if you will, right? It's alchemy. You can bring all those folks together and just think about it and work on the toughest problems, and you have so many more levers to go solve them. If I could, I would, when officers are CGOs or FGOs prior to making colonel, one or the other, every one of us would go to an ALC for a tour. It's the only place I think you truly get an enterprise view of sustainment. And that is just life-changing once you get it. So I was bit by the MRO bug, and I totally love it. And so your question on how do we use, existing, like depot manufacturing to speed innovation? Just that, we partner with industry and academia, give them good ideas. There's funding through certain unique channels through the depots that allow them to go solve problems for us. So we're directly communicating with industry and academia. This is what we need. The funding comes either directly from Congress, indirectly through Congress, or directly from the depot through our innovation funds, and then we go do new things. 3D metal printers. I'll give you a perfect example. We're having a hard time getting TF33 gearbox cases. They weren't made anymore, and we were about to come to a complete production stop on TF33s. And they put the bid out twice, no response. The third time came back and said, hey, it's going to be 3 times the cost, and it's going to take 48 months. We're like, it's normally 18 to 24. And they said, well, there's a national shortage of casting engineers, so we can't even get the casting made to pour it, to machine it down, to do the first article test, to determine if we can produce and scale. So LCMCLP, the propulsion directorate, went out and found an innovative young company. It used 3D printers that printed in sand. We reverse engineered the part, the tinker, gave them the tech data package. They 3D printed a mold, took it to their foundry, poured the part, machined it. We did the first article test on tinker because we have incredible physical sciences labs in our depots. And we had a gearbox on an engine on the test cell, through test cell passed, ready to go on a jet in 6 months. So what did we do at Tinker? We doubled the size of our foundry. We bought a 3D printer that prints in sand, and we started developing the organic capacity. We lashed up with the foundry guilds in Texas and Oklahoma to teach us how to do that better and began raising our game. That's where the power of the depots come in. And the best, in my opinion, I'm not working in the organic industrial base now, but in my opinion, one of the best investments we can make is to expand manufacturing in our depots to better combat diminishing sources of manufacturing supply. Be able to provide, 1 to 10 of any part, while industry spends up to provide 11 to 1,000, right? We can fill the gap until they can pick it up. So I think that's where our depots really come into play. It's awesome. In a bigger sense, I'd say, okay, if we consider ACE as our operational scheme of maneuver, by definition, it's dynamic, right? It assumes that we operate from a collection of hubs and spokes in a contested environment, and that's really to help preserve our assets and continue to take fight to the enemy. It's not about getting a position of advantage. It's about protection. This assumption of fighting under attack is really game-changing for us for many reasons. I mean, we spent 3 decades pulling repair capability from field units, collapsing SURFs, and moving all that back to the depot for economy of scale to be more efficient, cost-effective logistics, reduce the cost of logistics, do other things. Well, that's great when you can rely on just-in-time delivery of things, right? That you order it, it shows up, you through it 3 days. Well, when the lines of communication, air, land, and sea are contested, we no longer enjoy that. And if all the production's in the rear with the beer and you need the part 7,000 miles away, you're in trouble. So we really need to think about our repair networks moving forward, right? And the Sustainment Center is working hard to push repair capacity and capability back out to the field, to forward deploy depot activities out into the theaters, Pacific and Europe in particular. OSD is working something called the Regional Sustainment Framework, where they're working with partner nations to leverage their industrial bases. And I think the last missing piece is to get up with prime contractors and companies like AAR and United and others. They have warehouses and production capacity all over the world. If we had a massive matrix of that, if we needed something somewhere sometime, we could just do the Rolodex and call them up and contract for it real quick, right? So there's some things we're working on. But the bottom line is we have to reimagine our concept of support, right? And our depots are kind of at the hard center of that. So I really think a lot of the innovation, not only what we do, but how we do it, cold spray, 3D metal printing, pouring parts, something we'd never done before in our foundries. Our foundries were for creating ballast, right? Now we're pouring parts, we're on the fledgling effort of that. Reposturing our repair network, all of those elements that are tied with innovation. The hard center of that right now is the Sustainment Center. It's an exciting place to be.
Copy that. I had the opportunity to visit Tinker and the ALC about a year and a half ago with no prior knowledge of what the depots did other than as a C-17 crew chief, I did a depot prep, sent it away, and it came back, and I accept it.
You fire up a 107. You assume it goes to the depot. It doesn't. Most don't. They go to the program office, sustaining engineers. The supply chain management wing has sustaining engineers for parts. Some may go to the depot, but they don't, right? I mean, there's a whole ecosystem that we would be more effective if we learned how to engage with better. I'm sorry, go ahead. You were blown away, weren't you?
I was absolutely blown away. Yeah. The amount of facilities that are there and the capabilities and the machinery that Tinker has and
Well, the dedication of our civilian workforce, those industrial artisans, right? Do that job 30, 40 years. Many of them were prior enlisted in the 70s or whatever. And they're after it. They're getting it done. Homegrown Americans just pushing it. Whether you're Tinker, Robbins, or Hill, they're there to get the job done. They are so fiercely proud of what they do. During COVID at Tinker, we had our most productive years. Then the whole nation shut down. Our most productive years in like the last 10 were the 2 heavy hitting years of COVID, right? And agree with the quote unquote science. We're going to say cleaning, mask wear, and separation where we could. We had less than a dozen, through contact tracing, less than a dozen cases that were found to stem. They were all off base, not on base. So people were safe for work, and they kind of knew it. Wow. And so they came to work, did the job. We gave them the tools they need, and they produce. And that's what we need the war machine to do in the future when we face challenges that draw on our resiliency. The civilian airmen, they are resilient. They want to get the job done. They're with us on every flight, and they're so proud of the work they do.
Yeah, it was incredible. What really stuck out to me was up on the wall where it says, we do our wartime mission every day, right? And that just really hit me, I guess, like a brick wall when I saw it, right? Because these, like you said, the members that are there at the ALC, they are working their tails off every day and with this expertise to get the mission done.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the Air Force doesn't know it, right? So to tack on to, sending younger officers to the depots to do a tour there, I think I would love if the enlisted community could get a better understanding of what our depots do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Tinker had 10,500 people in the ALC, only 100 military. A good number were in propulsion, some of the aircraft line and the ABDR team. It's not a lot, right? It would be awesome if we had more, for sure. It's just it's an incredible experience of that team, and I wish everyone could see. That's why I said I wish I could send every CGO there, or go back as a major or lieutenant colonel, right? Just to get that level of SA makes you like 10 times the colonel that should be without it.
Copy that. All right, sir. And then so looking ahead at what the Air Force could look like, right? What direction do you envision for the Air Force's logistics and production sectors? And how do you plan to incorporate lessons learned from things like the pandemic and other recent challenges to enhance readiness efficiency?
I'll kind of go back to some things I said before. We're stronger together, and we're better when we understand the root of the problem. We need better logistics IT. We need one maintenance system, FMXC2. We need to fund and field torque, which is a planning tool, the flying hour program and all the maintenance actions go in there as a personnel module in others. And once all that's in there, it will begin to illuminate constraints, right? But we got to see it to know it, right? We got to see it to know it. And, an Excel guru is awesome, but Blade, the basing and logistics advanced data environment, every airman, every logistics leader ought to have access to it, know how to fiddle around. It taps into all our databases and provides common and user-defined operating pictures. So you can go look at what you want to look at. So if you want to say, hey, I want to look at, 10K availability in the Pacific or across the Air Force, you can go do that. If I want to look at, munition trailer availability, NRE or NCE, I don't want to look at, nuke certified equipment. I want to go look at that. You can go look at those things. You say, well, why is it low? Now you can dig into the data and understand and figure out, do we fix it with process? Is the denominator too big? We just have too much stuff, rarely the case. Is the numerator too small, right? I mean, is the stuff in the right places? So I think with the right data systems, it will illuminate constraints and help us better understand how to fix problems. And a part of the problem is the equipment we have isn't tailored for the scheme of maneuver and the operational design. Well, then we need to better engage the industry to tell them what we need as a force, not a platform or a function, but as a force, and how to go work. So, okay, hey, this is the data call. We're going to read you in, give you an NDA. This is the requirement. You have 60 days to bring us the concept. We'll down select from whatever we've got to 3. And then in 90 days, we want to be able to start up, three pilot projects. And then at the end of that, we're going to select when we're going to take it Air Force wide. We've got to do that instead of solving the same problem, multiple different ways through managed comms and innovation centers. So I think it all starts with log IT. We got to take that seriously. We got to fund it. We got to train our people how to leverage big data, and then train our people on CPI tools and techniques, and have feedback mechanisms. So if we're unhappy with our performance, once we understand what it's going to take to fix it, we have a mechanism to put money behind it. Not a palm cycle away, not 2 years away, but right now. Those are all the things I think we need to do better to bring together that, very fractured innovation, fragmented innovation ecosystem I talked about, and then fund it for success.
Copy that. Now comes time for a little bit of the fun part of the interview. Yeah, some of our rapid fire questions.
Here we go, man. Here we go.
And so, if you were an Avenger, who would you be?
Nick Fury.
Okay.
Why? So Nick Fury, one, he's got a passion for innovation and technology, right? But the big thing is he didn't have any superpowers. He just has the ability to bring those together with superpowers to go solve a problem, right? And I got a passion. I don't have any superpower. I'm, it's certainly not the smartest, most knowledgeable person out there, but I do have the ability to, exercise a little convening authority, call people together and say, all right, everybody here owns PCS. We're not leading them until we get to it, right? Let's get her done. And so I enjoy that part. When I was at Tinker, my engineers, they all had Marvel superhero names for themselves. And I'm like, well, you're not an engineer, so you can't have that, but you really have helped bring us engineers together. So they started calling me Fury. That was my Avenger name.
Interesting. I thought it would have been the eye patch, but he wears it towards the app. But what is your favorite musical instrument?
Oh man, I love listening to piano and guitar. Maybe a Light 2.0 will give me an opportunity to take up time to sit around and do one of those things.
Gotcha. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Okay. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Both, actually, because each got. You heard my Kobayashi Maru, and I like watching Star Wars. But I'm convinced Gene Roddenberry, the producer of Star Trek, I'm convinced that dude was a time traveler, right? I mean, if you think about it, the communicator is a cell phone, right? Spock was plugging little plastic squares in the computer before discs were even a thing. And he'd say, "Computer, computing, right? Siri." Yeah. Right? I mean, seriously, the replicator the food came out of, it's a 3D printer, right? I mean, it's all there. Kind of all we're missing is the transporter and the dilithium crystals for storing energy, right? So it's coming, man. That cat knew what was going on.
If you're on vacation with your family, where are you going?
Oh, shoot. Anywhere with family is a good start. I'd say anywhere with horses, snow skiing, scuba diving, or scenic motorcycle rides. But I just like being out in the elements, camping, hiking. All 3 of my sons are Eagle Scouts. And so we just like doing that kind of stuff together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Indiana Jones movie?
Oh man, that's a good one. I have to say The Last Crusade, because I think it highlighted the mysteries of faith, right? So whatever you ascribe to, I just think there's more to this universe than meets the eye. And sometimes a leap of faith is required,
I can't disagree with that. And then the last one, what is your superpower?
Oh man. I'd have to say determination, right? Walt Disney has one of my favorite quotes. He says, when you got a good idea, dog it. Dog it till it's done right? That's how Walt Disney, and I think that's, you got a good idea, you got to get after it, keep going, don't let up. And, it's like General Brown, former chief and chairman, you say there are 5 stages of no, right? When you go to do something, no, hell no, maybe, that's a good idea. Oh shoot, it's too late. Right? We're 10 miles down the road, forgot our French fries, we're not turning around, right? I mean, there's all the resistors in the world. So determination is super important. Another favorite saying I've heard is, in the battle between water and rock, water always wins. First by finding its way around rock, and then over time eroding the rock so it can do what it wants to do, right? That's perseverance. That's determination. I just say, if it's important to do, keep after it. And it may take years, but as you move up, you have more influence, you have more access to get things done. Just be determined. Don't give up. Like the dandelion sends its seeds all over, hoping one will take root. You spread those seeds, good ideas long enough, that something's got to happen. So just keep after it. I believe where there's a will, there's a waiver, right? So let's get out and let's find a way. Who was it? Hannibal, I think. Took elephants over the Punic Wars. Yeah. He said, find a way or make one, right? No better advice. Find a way or make one. If it's important, do it.
Copy that. And sir, we always like to try and close with this question, right? And it's just a little bit of leaving the floor open. So if you could leave behind one piece of advice or lasting insight, something from your career, for our Total Force Airmen out there, what would it be?
Oh, shoot. When I was a second lieutenant at Langley Air Force Base, my roommate was an incredible maintenance officer and good friend named Matt Powell. And our first maintenance supervisor was Major Rick Matthews, who eventually became LOA president when he was a colonel. We were walking to the club one Friday night, because that's what you did every Friday night. And Major Matthews threw his arm around the neck of Lieutenant King and Lieutenant Powell, and he said, LTs, I'm going to give you the best piece of advice anybody ever gave you. Bloom where you're planted. You may have a bad boss, you may have a bad location, you may not be happy with what you're doing. Bloom where you're planted. Treat the job you have as it's the best job in the world. Become the resident expert in it, and good things will happen, and you'll never have a bad assignment. You may be thankful for the next one, but you won't have a bad assignment. Bloom where you're planted, and the rest will take care of itself. And time again, Colonel Matthews, who I still talk to today, he was right. So just try and be as good as you can do, as good as you can be at whatever it is you do. Be a SME, be a resident expert. Don't be the best, right? I mean, Spud Webb's the only guy that was 5'7" and slam dunk. Some of us just aren't built to do certain things. Being the best, right, may not be physically or, within our capability. Be as good as you can be a value to other people, and take care of folks. And, what sounds like a ridiculous bumper sticker is really true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Take care of everyone around you, and kind of like the little floaties you put on your kids, the water wings, so goes the tide. So goes all boats, right? You take care of everybody around you, you rise as they do. You know what I mean? So take care of your people, be as good as you can be, stay focused on what's important, and just take care of each other. Like in Forrest Gump, right? They said, when Bubba and Forrest are in the rain, Bubba says, hey, you put your back against mine, I'll put my back against yours, and together we'll keep our heads out of the mud. Mm-hmm. That's being a good wingman right there. Be a good wingman, take care of each other. It's been a great run. I call this my unexpected journey. I had no thoughts of making it past my first assignment. Doors just opened, and there were opportunities. I walked through and tried to be as good as I could be at what I did. And now I'm left with nothing but gratitude and incredible memories of incredible people doing incredible things. And I know I'm going to miss it, but I know the Air Force is in good hands, brother.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, sir. We really appreciate it, and thank you for all the insight.
Yeah, you bet, Kasi. This is good. I'd love to get to sit down and talk for a little bit. And I welcome discourse, right? Folks want to hit me up via email here and on LinkedIn and stuff. And, we'll see the underside of a bus. Iron sharpens iron. We're here to learn from each other.
Absolutely.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Any references to trademarked, copyrighted, or protected products or services, such as books, movies, or businesses, are used here for the limited purposes of educational and professional development of Air Force Airmen. If you have any questions, please contact us at www.tesseract.af.mil.